Chapter 4. Henry. Henry Brown sighed as he stared down at his expense sheet. It had not been a good month, even with Elizabeth's dress shop bringing in more customers, and he knew that it was time for a change. He'd been looking to expand so that he could offer more household goods and tools, but that required money, and since he was short on that, he had only one remaining option: a loan. The only problem was that the banker despised him. Still, he'd have to try.
"Lord, you know what I need, and you know the history between myself and Harold Thompson. Please soften his heart to hear my words, and if this loan isn't your will, please show me what is."
Henry scribbled out a quick sign stating that he'd be back in 15 minutes. He didn't think it would take any longer than that, and hung it on the door before locking it. Then he made his way to the bank. The sun, though setting, still shot down rays of warmth, but they did nothing for the chill that Henry felt in his bones. He hadn't spoken directly to Harold Thompson in years, but he doubted the man's position had changed. When Henry reached the bank, he paused, his hand on the ornate handle, before pushing open the heavy wooden door. The scent of ink and polished wood assaulted his senses as he stepped inside, and he had to blink a few times to adjust to the dimmer interior. The bank was much more open than his store. In fact, other than a few chairs that created a waiting area, the only furniture in the room was a large, ostentatious desk, and behind it sat Harold Thompson. From the way the desk gleamed, Henry wondered if Harold had it polished every day. No doubt he employed someone who did that for him. Henry couldn't imagine Harold doing such menial work. Even when they'd been friends, Harold had often tried to find ways out of tasks he considered beneath him. Harold glanced up, his shrewd eyes narrowing at the sight of Henry. The man was stern on a good day, but he'd given an extra dose to Henry since that fateful day Maggie had chosen him over Harold so many years ago.
"Henry Brown, I thought you said you'd never step foot in this bank."
Those words had left his mouth years ago, but he hadn't said them directly to Harold. Still, he should have known they would make their way back to him. They had been said in a moment of anger, after learning that Harold had made a pass at Maggie, even though she was married to Henry.
"I didn't think I would, but I do apologize for saying it. I let anger and resentment get the better of me."
Harold's brow lifted.
"Anger and resentment? What exactly did you have to be angry about? I'm the one who was wronged."
Henry took a deep breath, trying to retain his calm. Harold had not been wronged, but no matter how he tried to explain that, Harold would not accept it.
"It doesn't matter. It's in the past."
An indignant chuff escaped Harold's lips.
"The past? I'm not surprised to hear you say that. What exactly can I do for you, Mr. Brown?"
Condescension oozed from Harold's voice as he leaned back and placed his hands on his oversized chair. Henry did not miss the formality in Harold's question, but he still hoped the man wouldn't hold the past against him when it came to his livelihood.
"I've come to ask for a loan."
Henry's hands clenched at his sides, and he wished he had a hat to hold in them. He didn't want to present any signs of weakness. Harold was a shark, and he sensed weakness like blood in water. Harold's eyebrows lifted.
"A loan? I never thought I'd see the day the proud Henry Brown would need a loan, especially from the likes of me."
Henry swallowed the unkind words he wanted to say. Pride was his stumbling block, as he'd been raised to be self-reliant and rarely ask for help. But he resented Harold using it against him like a weapon.
"I didn't think I would need a loan, but times have changed. The store needs some updates, and I don't have the cash on hand to do them. I promise I'm good for it, though." "You promise, do you?"
Harold chuckled, and a mischievous gleam sparked in his eyes.
"If only your promise meant something, but I seem to remember that you break your promises, at least to me."
Henry sucked in a deep breath and clenched his fists tighter at his side.
"That was years ago. We were boys, and I couldn't help it that Maggie fell for me." "You never gave her the chance to choose,"
Harold thundered, his hands slapping against the desk as he leaned forward.
"You turned her against me before she even got to know me."
"That's not true," Henry began.
"I tried to keep my distance, but she was helping in the store. I couldn't ignore her." "You could have told her you weren't interested in her."
Harold's chest heaved with anger.
"But that would have been a lie. You knew that I liked her too. There are so few women out here, Harold. You will refer to me as Mr. Thompson. You lost the right to call me Harold when you stole Maggie." "I didn't steal her. She made a choice."
As much as Henry wanted to fight this, he knew it was a lost cause. There would be no money from Harold, and even if there were, he would probably attach exorbitant interest or payback rules to it.
"A choice that you influenced. I'm sorry, but this bank has no money for you." "This isn't right, Mr. Thompson," Henry said, catching himself. "You are the only bank in town, and you are denying me the right to expand my business, simply because of a personal matter that is decades old." "As owner of the bank, that is my right."
He sat back in his seat and folded his arms across his massive chest.
"I guess you'll have to find another town." "It didn't have to be like this,"
Henry said softly, but he knew he would get no in-kind reply from Harold. While he had turned to and leaned into his faith, Harold's had been weakened by the dismissal of Maggie. And though he had eventually married, Henry didn't believe it had been for love. He could take the issue up with the town council, but he didn't think it would do much good either. Many of the men on the council were close friends with Harold, and few of them were scrupulous. He would just have to trust that God would provide another way.